Have you ever paused to consider what a man truly offers when he lies with someone? It's not just his body, nor is it simply a matter of performance. Without even realizing it, he gives something far more fragile: his soul. A soul starving not for sex, but for significance, for tenderness, for the unspoken miracle of being chosen. But this offering doesn't arrive wrapped in vulnerability. No, it comes hidden beneath desire, disguised as lust, postured as dominance. When bodies meet, it may look like just skin touching skin. But beneath that contact, something ancient stirs. Because deep down, a man's ultimate craving isn't just release, it's recognition. The silent wish to be seen, accepted, held not despite his flaws, but through them. The man who lowers himself before a woman's body isn't simply hungry for pleasure. He is yearning for the affection that was never freely given. It appears physical, yet it is deeply spiritual. It wears the mask of seduction, but it speaks of old wounds, of inherited emptiness mistaken for power. When intimacy is genuine, it does more than expose flesh. It reveals the theater behind the gestures, the performance behind the act. It peels back the armor of control to uncover the trembling truth underneath. This is where Carl Jung's insights become piercing. The body becomes prophecy, the shadow a mirror, and only the one brave enough to remove the mask can see what lives beneath. Jung never treated desire as a mere animal instinct. He saw sexuality as a crossing between worlds, the known and the mysterious. Every intimate act, he said, reveals more than it appears. To Jung, desire isn't born from the skin, but from the psyche. Every urge, every motion, traces back to what lies buried in the unconscious. Sex isn't just physical, it is a deep transaction. An exchange of energies, shadows, histories. And when the wrong woman enters a man's life, what should have been pleasure becomes depletion. Not just of the body, but of the heart, the spirit, the fire. This isn't just about lust. It's about why so many men feel exhausted after sex. Not tired in their bones, but in their soul. Because every moment of intimacy without presence, every act without connection, chips away a piece of the self in exchange for a temporary nod of approval. The female body is sacred, but so is yours. When two sacred beings meet without awareness, without alignment, chaos emerges. Because in those moments, you're not simply having sex, you're opening energetic doorways. And not all of them lead to healing. This is the journey we never learn to see. When a man truly surrenders in intimacy, he doesn't just reveal his physique. He lays bare the parts of his soul he has long kept hidden. The fear of being abandoned. The vulnerability cloaked in strength. The past that clings like a silent ghost. Deep intimacy isn't about nudity. It's about the ache to be known. That quiet second between touches, that is where the invisible boy inside appears. The boy who only ever wanted to be loved without having to earn it. And that kind of exposure is more terrifying than any physical nakedness. How many men silently collapse in those moments of closeness, even as their faces stay composed? The mask of masculinity doesn't fall with screams, it crumbles in quiet. A single kiss can awaken abandonment. A kind word can expose decades of hidden shame. Jung said the unconscious never stops speaking. In sex, it shouts. The body becomes the stage on which the soul enacts its deepest wounds. This is why men sometimes recoil when things get too real. Because intimacy is not just closeness, it is a mirror. And most men aren't ready to face their reflection. The unraveling of male strength doesn't start in crisis. It begins in a moment, a single touch that slips past the wall and rattles something long buried. But that shaking is the beginning. A sign that awakening is near. Most men are taught that pleasure comes through performance. Master the technique, impress her, be enough, but this belief is an illusion. True connection, the kind that lives in the soul, is born in stillness, not showmanship. To offer true pleasure is to enter sacred space. It's a doorway not just to her, but to yourself, to the gentle forgotten self that was told to harden, the soft part, the hidden inner feminine. The very thing Jung called the anima, the woman within the man. Here's the paradox. When a man gives himself fully to intimacy, he doesn't just touch her. He touches the most exiled part of himself, that forgotten truth, that sacred tenderness. And in doing so, something awakens. Something no performance can manufacture, because real sexuality isn't just about stimulation, it's about presence. When you are fully there, the body becomes a temple, a mirror, a voice, no longer pretending, no longer chasing validation. Just truth. And in that place, pleasure becomes healing. But this path, It's dangerous. Because it demands more than performance, it demands surrender. Many men say they crave love, but what they seek is approval. A confirmation that they matter. A balm to soothe old, unspoken wounds. And that's where the trap begins. When the hunger to be chosen outweighs the capacity for self-love, the man starts to vanish. He bends, he overgives. He performs, until nothing remains but the echo of who he once was. Have you seen that man? The one who tries so hard, gives so much, is always kind and yet always left behind. It's not that he is wrong, it's that he is caught in an emotional loop. Because excessive kindness, too, can be a mask paint pretending to be virtue. He's not loving, he's pleading, begging for attention through the language of effort. And when his needs aren't met, resentment grows. Because he thought love could heal what only self-acceptance can. This is the point where projection begins. He begins to look outward for rescue, for someone to save him from the loneliness he carries inside. But that salvation doesn't come reject and disown. The side that drives our choices when we think we're in control. What you do not make conscious, Jung warned, will appear in your life as fate. And for many men, this fate repeats over and over in relationships that begin with hope and end in the same pain. The shadow, your wounded, hidden self, takes the wheel silently. It's why patterns repeat, why intimacy feels like déjà vu. Not because of who you're with, but because of what still lives unresolved inside. This is why emotional connection often feels dangerous. Not because the woman is unsafe, but because her closeness brushes against old scars still bleeding beneath the surface. The man approaches with a strong face, but a fragile heart. And that quiet implosion is never seen, only felt later, when he retreats without explanation. When you are disconnected from yourself, your body becomes either armor or isolation. You use it to protect or to run. In this battle between touch and fear, between openness and shame, a man must decide. Will he use intimacy to hide or to heal? The shadow is not your enemy. It is not the part you hate, it's the part you've buried. The ache to be accepted. The fear of inadequacy. The anxiety of not being enough. It is all there unseen, but always active. Waiting to be triggered by a glance, a silence, a sudden act of tenderness that feels too close for comfort. And where does it rise? In those small, invisible moments. A touch that awakens memory. A gesture that echoes childhood hurt. A conversation that repeats a past wound. These aren't coincidences. They are mirrors, showing you what still asks for your attention. Every man, at some point, will cast his shadow outward. He will project onto a woman everything he cannot yet see in himself. He will mistake her for salvation. Suddenly, she's not just a partner, she's a healer, a mother, a savior, a symbol of all he never received. But that's not love. That's projection. And projection always leads to collapse. Because when we expect someone to heal what we haven't faced, we set ourselves up for heartbreak. It's not that she failed, it's that we made her carry a burden that was never hers to bear. You may believe you're loving her, but what you're doing is begging her to make you feel whole. That isn't intimacy, it's dependence. And dependence turns desire into disappointment. You start by putting her on a pedestal. You don't see her, you see your need, wrapped in her body. But when she reveals her humanity, makes a mistake, or fails to meet your fantasy, everything shatters. You don't just lose connection, you lose the illusion. And with that comes contempt. The man who once worshipped her now grows resentful. Why? Because he wasn't truly connecting, he was escaping. He was hoping that through her, he could bypass the work he never did within himself. He was hoping love could replace healing. But it never does. This is the point where many men become bitter, angry, closed off. But bitterness is not strength, it's heartbreak unprocessed. Resentment is not wisdom, it's pain that still doesn't have a voice. In their desperation to feel whole, many men end up giving away parts of themselves they can't afford to lose. Their clarity, their sense of direction, their very soul. And they do it all in the name of connection, not realizing it's not connection at all, it's emotional entanglement. They confuse passion with meaning, chaos with intensity, loneliness with chemistry. But no matter how powerful she is, no woman can reflect a man's soul if he hasn't met himself in the mirror. First, the real mirror is inward. That is where the awakening begins. But to face your reflection, without judgment, without filters, takes a level of courage most men avoid their entire lives. And yet, that very courage is the portal to truth. You see, most men are still waiting for that one moment, that one woman, that one feeling to tell them they are finally enough. But external validation never lasts. The high fades. The words dim. The affection disappears. And once again, they are left hollow. Because anything that comes from the outside will eventually leave. But what comes from within? That stays true. Healing begins the moment a man stops begging to be chosen and finally chooses himself. Not as an ego statement, but as a sacred commitment to stop abandoning himself for others. Approval.self-awareness isn't a theory. It isn't a quote on a feed. It is practice. It is present. It is the quiet daily choice to sit with yourself when it's uncomfortable. To listen when silence feels loud. To look into the void without filling it with distractions. That's where the real masculine journey begins. Not in performing. Not in proving, but in the presence. Raw, honest human presence. In that space, sexuality stops being an escape. It becomes a return. Desire transforms from hunger to offering. Intimacy becomes less about taking and more about sharing. Sacred pleasure arises not from need, but from fullness. That's when the shadow becomes a guide, not a ghost. That's when silence turns to wisdom. And that's when the body becomes a temple, not a battlefield. But to reach that place, a man must go through the death of the ego. He must peel off the masks one by one until only truth remains, not the curated strength, not the illusion of control, but the raw beating core of who he truly is. In that pilgrimage, a man discovers what the world tried to make him forget, his humanity, tender, beautiful, sacred. Not every woman deserves access to your body. And even fewer deserve access to your energy. Sex, when unconscious, becomes a doorway through which your very life force can be siphoned without your awareness, without your consent. Some women are not anchored within themselves, carrying emotional wounds, addicted to conflict, disconnected from their essence. Within them, a deep void lingers. And when you enter that void, thinking it's just pleasure, it devours you. It consumes your focus, your clarity, your strength. You walk away emptier than you arrived, still thinking it was just a night of intimacy. But what you don't realize is your soul has been leaking, what she lived with other men, the trauma she carries, the unresolved emotional agreements she holds onto. They do not vanish in your embrace. They are present, etched into her energy field. And sex is the doorway. Through that union, her patterns, her pain, her unconscious weight seeps into you. You are not just engaging her body. You are stepping into her story, her wounds, her beliefs, her shadow. And if you're not fully present, if you're not grounded, that contact becomes contamination. You find yourself more tired, more distracted, less inspired, but you can't explain why. This is why. You think it's just your mood, just stress, just hormones, but it's not. You've merged with energy you never prepared for. You've taken on weight that isn't yours to carry. Intimacy, when unaware, becomes an invisible transaction. And sometimes it is devastating, because it doesn't scream, it whispers. It drips into you slowly until your soul is flooded. And all the while, you keep smiling, keep working, keep posting motivational quotes, never realizing your spiritual battery is nearly empty. It doesn't matter how strong your body looks. It doesn't matter how confident your words sound. If you keep giving yourself to people who live in emotional chaos, your foundation will rot from the inside out. This isn't about judging others. It's about discernment, energetic discernment. Choosing wisely, choosing with presence. Because if you don't break the pattern will break you. As long as you keep offering yourself to anyone who provides a temporary distraction. From your inner emptiness, your spirit will remain in fragments. And one day, you may realize you've given so much of yourself away that you no longer remember what you looked like. Now ask yourself, how many times have you mistaken hunger for connection? How often have you surrendered your essence to someone who didn't even know how to hold her own? How many times did you walk away from a night of intimacy feeling more lost, more disoriented, more hollow than before? These aren't easy questions, but they are necessary. Because if you don't ask them now, life will ask them for you later, and the price will be heavier. There's no shame in the mistake, but there's power in recognition. From this moment on, you can no longer pretend you don't understand. You now know, sex is not a game, it is a ritual. The body is not just flesh, it is an oracle. Every act of intimacy is either an act of self-honoring or self-ersuri. Every choice you make with your body either rebuilds your temple or tears it down further. So now the question isn't about them, it's about you. Will you continue to offer all of yourself to people who only want fragments? Will you keep confusing attention with affection? Or will you finally require a level of presence that honors your soul? Because the moment you stop chasing and start choosing, the moment you set boundaries not as walls, but as sacred thresholds, you shift everything. You become unavailable for half-love, unavailable for emotional chaos, unavailable for performances. You no longer live in survival mode, you rise into sovereignty. And when that shift happens, your entire energy field changes. You stop attracting chaos. You stop participating in dysfunction. You begin to draw in people who are also rooted, also aware, also ready. But to get there, you must stop seeking salvation in others. You must become the one who sees you, the one who chooses you, the one who says, I am enough. I no longer trade pieces of myself to feel valuable. I no longer abandon myself to be accepted. And yes, it will be lonely at first, because you'll realize how few people truly meet you where you are. But that loneliness is sacred. It's not absence, it's preparation. Because when you honor your energy, when you move through the world fully anchored, you create space for intimacy that doesn't drain, but expands. That doesn't fragment, but heals. This is what's sacred. Sexuality means, it's not about rules or restraint. It's about awareness. It's about presence. It's about choosing not just who touches your body, but who enters your field, your story, your future. So let this be your turning point. Let this be the moment you stop calling it just sex and start calling it what it is, a gateway, a spiritual exchange, a mirror of who you are when no one's watching. And if something in this message stirred something in you, if something cracked open or felt too familiar or burned a little, it means you're ready. So take a breath, stand still, and ask yourself not, who do I want, but who am I becoming? Because from this moment on, performance is over. Only presence remains.